There is a silent epidemic that begins to take hold in your 40s. It accelerates quietly through your 50s, and by the time you reach your 60s, it can become a dangerous health crisis. You likely do not feel it happening on a day-to-day basis. You might just notice that the grocery bags feel heavier than they used to, or perhaps getting out of a low chair takes a little more momentum than it did a decade ago. Doctors have a name for this condition. It is called sarcopenia. The word comes from the Greek meaning poverty of flesh. It is the involuntary, progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength as we age. There is, however, a terrifying truth that nobody likes to talk about. Sarcopenia is the primary driver of aging. It is the #1 statistical predictor of frailty, falls, and the loss of independence in older adults. When you lose muscle, you are not just losing strength. You are losing your body's metabolic engine, you are losing your glucose disposal system, and you are losing your physical armor against the world. Many people don't understand this. You can go to the gym, you can eat what you consider to be a healthy diet, and you can still lose muscle. You can do everything right on paper and still become frail. Why does this happen? It happens because your body has fundamentally changed. The biological rules that worked for you when you were 25 do not work when you are 55. Your muscles have developed a biochemical block, a stubborn resistance that prevents them from growing even when you feed them. In this video, we are going to fix that. We are going to explore the phenomenon known as anabolic resistance, and I am going to give you the specific protein timing rule. I will teach you the exact dosage and the specific schedule you need to follow to override this resistance, flip the growth switch back on, and effectively reverse the aging process. The goal is not to look like a bodybuilder, but to stay strong enough to save your own life. The science. To fix the problem, we first need to identify the enemy. The enemy is a condition called anabolic resistance. Think back to when you were 20 years old. At that age, your muscles were highly sensitive to nutrients. You could eat a small amount of protein, maybe a couple of eggs, or a handful of nuts, and your body would immediately trigger a massive growth response. Your muscles acted like a hair trigger light switch. You barely touched the switch, and the lights turned on. This process is called muscle protein synthesis, MPS. But as you age, that light switch becomes stiff. It becomes rusty. By the time you pass the age of 50, your muscles become essentially deaf to the signal of protein. You can eat the exact same meal you ate when you were 20, but now that meal fails to trigger a growth response. The signal is too weak. The light switch does not flip. This is why eating sensibly often fails for older adults. You are eating enough to survive, but you are not eating enough to thrive. So how do we force that rusty switch to turn on? We need a bigger stimulus. We need to hit a specific chemical threshold that forces the body to respond. The key to this threshold is a specific amino acid called leucine. Think of protein like a car. Leucine is the key to ignition. You can have a full tank of gas, representing all the other amino acids. But if you do not have enough leucine to turn the key, the car simply does not start. The engine of muscle growth does not turn on. Research has identified a specific leucine threshold. For older adults, you need approximately 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine in a single sitting to trigger the anabolic response. If you do not hit that number, nothing happens. You stay in a catabolic, muscle-wasting state. This biological reality leads us to the 3 rules of protein timing that you must follow. Rule number 1, the threshold. Rule number 1 is about dosage. We call this the 30-gram rule. This is the area where 90% of people over the age of 50 fail. Most people graze on protein throughout the day. They have a little bit in their yogurt, a little bit in a salad, or a little bit in a snack. They believe that every little bit counts. But science says if you eat 15 grams of protein, you might only get 1 gram of leucine. That is not enough to turn the key. The switch stays off. You have consumed the calories, but you have triggered 0 muscle repair. It is biologically useless for growth. To hit that critical 3-gram leucine threshold, You generally need to consume a minimum of 30 grams of high-quality protein in a single sitting. This means the traditional tea and toast breakfast is a disaster for longevity. A bowl of oatmeal made with water is a disaster. Even eating a single egg is a disaster. Why is this so critical at breakfast? Because after sleeping for 8 hours, your body is in a catabolic state. It is actively breaking down muscle tissue for fuel. You need a massive signal to stop that breakdown and flip your body into growth mode. 10 grams of protein will not do it. You need 30. You need to look at your breakfast plate tomorrow morning with a critical eye. If it does not have 30 grams of protein, you are missing your most critical window of opportunity. Consider the math. 1 egg has 6 grams of protein. That means you would need 5 eggs to hit the threshold. That is a lot of eggs for most people. Instead, you should mix your sources. Try 2 whole eggs, 3 egg whites, and a side of Greek yogurt. Or use a high-quality whey protein isolate shake, which is engineered to be high in leucine. You must stop simply snacking on protein and start dosing protein. It is an all-or-nothing game. Hit 30 grams or do not bother. Rule number 2, the distribution. Now that we understand how much to eat, we need to talk about when to eat it. This brings us to rule number 2, which is protein pulsing. The standard American diet is what nutritionists call backloaded. This means we eat almost no protein at breakfast, perhaps just some cereal or a bagel. We eat a moderate amount at lunch, maybe a sandwich, and then we eat a massive amount at dinner, like a large steak or chicken breast. This is biologically inefficient. Muscle protein synthesis is a transient event. It lasts about 2 to 3 hours. Once you trigger it, it runs its course, and then it turns off. You enter a refractory period where the muscle creates a full sign and will not accept any more amino acids for a while. If you eat 90 grams of protein at dinner, your body can use the first 30 or 40 grams to trigger the growth signal. But what about the remaining 50 grams? It cannot be stored for later muscle growth. It is burned for fuel or stored as fat. You miss the growth opportunities at breakfast and lunch, and you wasted the surplus at dinner. To fight sarcopenia, you need to spike muscle growth multiple times a day. We call this pulsing. You want to trigger that rusty light switch, let the light burn for 3 hours, let it reset, and then trigger it again. You need 3 distinct spikes per day, spaced roughly 4 to 5 hours apart. Your first pulse should be at 7 or 8 in the morning. Break your fast with 30 to 40 grams to flip the switch on. Your second pulse should be around 12 or 1 in the afternoon. Re-stimulate the mechanism with another 30 to 40 grams. Your third pulse should be at 6 or 7 in the evening. This is the final dose to protect muscle overnight. By moving protein from dinner to breakfast and lunch, you are not necessarily eating more calories. You are simply distributing them in a way that aligns with your biology. You are tripling the amount of time your body spends in an anabolic, muscle-building state. Rule number 3, the source. We have covered dosage and timing. Now we must cover quality. This is rule number 3. Not all proteins are created equal. Remember the key to the ignition, leucine? Animal proteins like meat, eggs, dairy, fish, and whey are naturally very high in leucine. They are efficient. You can hit your leucine threshold with about 25 to 30 grams of whey protein or steak. Plant proteins like beans, lentils, hemp, and rice are typically lower in leucine. They are also less bioavailable, meaning your body absorbs less of what you eat due to the fiber and anti-nutrients present in the plants. Does this mean you cannot build muscle on a plant-based diet? No, but it means the math is significantly harder. If you rely on plant protein, 30 grams might not be enough to trigger the rusty switch. You might need 40 or 45 grams of plant protein to get the same 3 grams of leucine found in a piece of steak. If you eat animal products, look for the gold standard sources. Whey isolate and eggs have the highest leucine content per calorie. They are your weapons against aging. Beef, chicken, fish, and Greek yogurt are also excellent sources. If you are following a plant-based strategy, you must be strategic. You cannot rely on quinoa and beans alone, as the volume of food required to hit the leucine threshold is massive. You should consider adding a specialized essential amino acid powder or a supplemental leucine powder to your plant-based meals to fortify them. I also need to add a quick note on collagen. Everyone seems to be putting collagen in their coffee for protein these days. Collagen is great for your skin and your joints, but it has almost zero leucine. It is a complete failure for muscle building. Do not count collagen toward your 30-gram muscle target. The Perfect Day Protocol. So, what does this look like in real life? Let us construct the perfect anti-sarcopenia day. Imagine you are 60 years old. You want to stay strong. Here is your menu. Your day begins with the morning pulse at 8 in the morning. You wake up catabolic. You need a fast-acting signal. You prepare a power omelet. This consists of 2 whole eggs plus half a cup of egg whites. On the side, you have a small bowl of Greek yogurt. This meal gives you a total of 35 grams of protein and about 3.5 grams of leucine. The result is that the switch is turned on immediately. 5 hours later, at 1 in the afternoon, it is time for the midday pulse. Muscle protein synthesis has dropped back to baseline. It is time to spike it again. You have a large salad topped with a 5-ounce can of tuna or a chicken breast. This provides another 35 grams of protein. The result is that the switch is turned on again. Finally, at 6:30 in the evening, you have the evening pulse. For dinner, you enjoy a lean piece of beef or salmon with roasted vegetables. This delivers your final 35 grams of protein. The result is that the switch is turned on for the 3rd time. If you really want to maximize results, there is one final hack. Before bed, consume a slow-digesting protein like cottage cheese. This is rich in casein protein. It gels in your stomach and drips amino acids into your blood all night long, fighting muscle breakdown while you sleep. Conclusion. Sarcopenia is not inevitable. Getting frail is not a requirement of getting older. The weakness you see in many older adults is not just aging. It is often chronic underfueling. It is a failure to understand the changing math of their own biology. Your muscles are waiting for the signal. They are waiting for you to turn the key, but you have to respect the threshold. You must stop grazing, stop backloading your calories, stop eating tea and toast, start dosing, start pulsing, start hitting that 30-gram number like your life depends on it, because the quality of your life absolutely does. I want you to try this for 1 week. Change nothing else about your diet, but hit that 30-gram mark at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You will feel the difference in your energy, your recovery, and your strength. Which meal is the hardest for you to get protein in? Is it breakfast? Let me know in the comments below, and I will give you some specific food swaps to help you hit your number.